We'll be discussing today a theme on India and South Asia. How does one understand South Asia? How can India as a country be related to South Asia and South Asian countries? What are their interrelational problems? What are the prospects of cooperation? How can we define the area? All such questions preoccupy me when I'm talking about it. Broadly speaking, in South Asia, countries such as India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Bhutan, they all are part of South Asia. But apart from this, many times I feel that can Myanmar be also part of South Asia? Is there a possibility? It is not explored. But 8 members which constitute South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, they surely are part of South Asia. There is also one more possibility. Part of Kashmir has been ceded by Pakistan to China. So is China also one of the actors in South Asia? I think although it is not a member of SAARC, it is one of the actors, and I'll come to its role. Basically, if you look at it, South Asia has a very strategic location in world politics, and India particularly. India was defined as castle surrounded by the seas and capped by the Himalayas. It has 3 oceans on the 3 sides and Himalayas in the north. Strategically located, major country in the Indian Ocean region. Today people call it Indo-Pacific region because of India's presence. India is so dominant in Indian Ocean region, and now it is also acquiring importance in Pacific region. I would also like to say that in spite of the fact that there is a vast area, the trade between countries of South Asia, particularly intra-South Asian trade, is minimal, from 3.5% to almost 5% every year. So the trade is not so strong. The trade is between perhaps these countries and advanced countries of the West or East Asian countries. There is also the 2 nuclear powers, Pakistan and India, and there is a continuous rivalry between Pakistan and India over several areas, but Kashmir being the central one. That's why prospects of cooperation are always impeded in this area. But then if I were to define South Asia and South Asian region, how will I work it out? First thing that I would say, South Asia is Indo-centric region. It is Indo-centric because if you look at religion and culture, whatever is there in India, other countries are bound by it. For instance, you can say that India has Tamilian population in Tamil Nadu state, and Sri Lankans have Tamilian people who are settled from India in the north and northeast of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka also has Buddhism as a religion, which is common between India and Sri Lanka. You have Nepal, which is a Hindu kingdom, and India has majority Hindu population. You have Pakistan, which has Islam as a religion, and Islam is also one of the preeminent religions in India. And people in Pakistan speak Punjabi and Urdu, which are spoken in India as well. If you look at Bangladesh, then people speak Bangla, and in West Bengal also people speak Bangla. Islam also is a common factor between Bangladesh and India. Similarly, Maldives has Islamic people and Bhutan has Buddhist people, and both Buddhism and Islam are part of India. So it is Indo-centric region in civilizational sense, in religious and linguistic sense. I would go ahead and say that more importantly it is Indo-centric because of India's power capability. India is the most superior power in the entire region. If you look at India's superiority in terms of its vast size, its population, which is the highest trained manpower, educational institutions, military-industrial complexes, leadership, governance, and thriving democracy. I think India is a rising power by all standards. And this rising power has to face neighboring countries which are nowhere near its power capabilities. That is why at one stage India had intervened in the then East Pakistan to liberate Bangladesh in 1971. It also intervened in Maldives in 1988, and between 1987 and 1990, the Indian peacekeeping forces had intervened in Sri Lanka as well. So somewhere the neighboring countries of India are also apprehensive of India's dominance or hegemonic power, which cannot be denied. If you come down to kind of relationship between India and South Asian countries, some quick observations can be made. Sri Lanka, for instance, the ethnic nationalities which cause problems and also unresolved border disputes. Let me kind of talk about ethnic nationalities. The Tamilians in Sri Lanka have always suffered because of the persecution, because of the lack of adequate representation, and they rose up in a movement called Liberation Movement of LTTE, Liberation Tigers of Tamil Elan. And because of that, so many Tamilians fled into Tamil Nadu, and that became India's problem. Otherwise, Sri Lanka is very important to India because Sri Lanka has Trikonamali port, natural harbour. Sri Lanka is important because of POC Straits. And Sri Lanka, let me also remind you that, it has Hambantota port, which is in a part, China is trying to build it, and it is becoming part of China's famous program of Belt Road Initiative. Let me then say that Sri Lanka is also important in the Indian Ocean, and India somewhere when it kind of intervened militarily in Sri Lanka, the intervention didn't yield positive results at all, and somewhere Janata Vimukti Perumana, a very anti-Indian party, came up in Sri Lanka. Eventually, of course, the LTTE revolt was suppressed by the Sri Lankan government by 2009, but this ethnic similarity has caused problems between India and Sri Lanka. Whenever the human rights are violated in Sri Lanka, the state of Tamil Nadu wanted India to have policy which is stiff towards Sri Lanka. Similarly, people are Nepalese origin are there in India, and Indians have also settled in Nepal. The people of Nepalese origin in India have, particularly Gurkhas, who have come from different parts of Nepal, Bhutan. They wanted to establish a state for themselves, Gurkhaland, in India. And similarly, the Indians settled in Nepal, and they have their problems in Nepalese government. But by and large, the borders between Nepal and India are porous and free. And there is also 1950 treaty which India had with Nepal, which kind of extends peace and friendship, and many other facilities including customs duties, education, and other things. The point is, when China in 1980s, late 1980s, began to supply weapons to Nepal, India decided to assert its power. And in 1989, when it abrogated trade and transit treaty, and it was not renewed, so for 8 to 9 months, the India-Nepal relations witnessed tension in 1989-90 because Nepal could not trade with the world because it's a landlocked country, and it had, it had to depend for trade and transit on India. So you can see India's power as much as capacity of neighbors to bother India. I would also like to mention here that Madhesi movement also started in Nepal, and parts of the Madhesis are in Bihar too. And this movement tried to block the oil supply, fuel supply in Nepal, and indirectly it was reported that they are backing from India. One more point that needs to be kind of worked out is Madhesis want proportional representation. They also want federal arrangements in the constitution, and India possibly backed them indirectly because of the similar population in Bihar. Nepal and India have also problem related to Kala Pani territory, which is disputed. But as far as Bangladesh is concerned, so many Chakma refugees have come into India, and the Chakma refugees have caused problems in terms of they are not citizens, they are staying as refugees. And after Bangladesh war of 1971, a huge number of Bangladeshi migrants came over in India's state of Assam and Tripura, to a point where Assam began to lose its identity. Tripura also began to lose its identity. The Bangladeshis came not merely in Tripura and Assam, but they came in New Delhi, Bombay, and many other parts. Point to be noted here is that the problem of migrants has not been satisfactorily resolved, and somewhere the current government has brought CAA, the Citizenship Amendment Act, which is trying to see that somewhere people who are not citizens of this country are repatriated back to Bangladesh, and that is where a lot of controversies are there. The current elections in Bengal, Assam and entire Northeast are also going through this controversy. So sometimes ethnic nationalities have caused problems. That's my central point. As far as Pakistan is concerned, there are several problems between India and Pakistan. I would not go into details of it. I am only going to concentrate on Kashmir, because now it's a kind of major dispute I come down to. One thing that I can say is Pakistan emerged on the basis of two-nation theory, and it's the first non-contiguous geographical state. One part of Pakistan was separated, two parts of Pakistan were separated by 1200 miles, East and West Pakistan. Another thing is it was built on Islam. Religion becomes the base of forming a modern state. And third characteristics of Pakistan was anti-Indianism, that they opposed India for everything was on their fear that India may wipe out Pakistan from the map itself. And that fear was kept alive. One problem which remained unresolved from 1947 till now has been Kashmir problem. What is Kashmir and why it is so important? I think it is kind of important because Kashmir is a kind of source of river water systems. Like all rivers to Punjab like Jhelum, Chennai, Ravi, Byas, Satluj, they have their origins there. Another thing is Kashmir is strategically so located that it shares frontier with India, Pakistan, part of China is also there, then former Soviet Union, and somewhere you can say that Kashmir is a gateway to South Asia, gateway to Southwest Asia, and even gateway to Central Asia. It's a very important strategically located area, and it also is at the heart of two national identities, India's secular national identity and Pakistan's Islamic identity. The strategic location of Kashmir, both the countries have tried to catch hold of it. Part of it is occupied by Kashmir, two-thirds of it is occupied by India, and the tussle has continued. In the 50s, Pakistan, in order to kind of get Kashmir issue solved, sought the American help in 1953. And once they sought the American help and also joined Southeast Asia Treaty Organization and Central Asia Treaty Organization, Nehru government began to state that the Cold War has been brought to India's doorstep, and now India will not be in a mood to go for referendum, which India was interested when India internationalized the issue. Subsequently, after 1962 war with China, in 1963, China and Pakistan forged links. They became friends. China began to support Pakistan with arms, later on with missile technology, and now it is kind of supporting Pakistan in terms of, through its several infrastructure projects, as well as inducting Pakistan in the Belt Road Initiative project, where part of the kind of road will be built where Pakistan occupied Kashmir, China-Pakistan economic corridor, and India is opposing it. I would like to add here that, India and Pakistan have had no peaceful ties. There had three major wars in 47, 65 and 71, mini war in Siachen glaciers in 1980s and 1990s, Kargil war. And consistently the tension has been there between these countries, and India could never have let go of Kashmir, because if you allow self-determination to one area in the country, northeast countries also they would revolt for self-determination. So would perhaps Punjab one day. So there are problems, but one has to understand the complexities of Kashmir population. Like Dogras, they are Hindus and Muslim Dogras. Paharis, they are Hindus and Muslim Paharis. Buddhist population stays in Ladakh. So Kashmir has its complexities. Only Gujars are Muslims. I would go further and state quickly that this Article 370, which was given autonomous status to Kashmir, has been amended now in the constitution. But Kashmiri people have all the time been revolting against India from the 1980s. First, they established Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Front. It had a nationalistic color. But that nationalistic flavor got radicalized, and radical Islam took over somewhere. Subsequently, you had help coming from across the border. Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba, the terrorist organization of Pakistan began to help Kashmir. They also somewhere were cause for 26/11 attack in Mumbai, the Jaish-e-Mohammed. So, and Lashkar-e-Taiba, both the terrorist organizations have played their role in cross-border terrorism as far as India is concerned. I would also like to mention here that if Pakistan becomes India's friend, it will have access to Central Asia, it will have access to West Asia. And if India becomes Pakistan's friend, Pakistan will have access to Southeast Asia. So the current move of Baweja, the military leader in Pakistan, to kind of amend and start becoming friends is desirable, worth the while. I would also move on and say Bangladesh and India had their own set of problems. Somewhere they have maritime frontier with each other. They have also they had inappropriate boundary which ran between villages, markets, and even houses. And 3 Bigha Zamin corridor, where 50,000 Hindu enclave was there, that had to be sorted out over the years. Now the land frontiers are settled, maritime frontiers are settled. Only Ganga water dispute also has been settled between India and Bangladesh. But what is left is Teesta water dispute. That has to be settled between the two, and earlier the better. That is the situation we have reached now. That earlier these things get settled, Bangladesh-India relations also could get normalized. I would like to mention here further that Gujral doctrine was very important in entire India's relationship with South Asia. Gujral was the Prime Minister, he was also Foreign Minister of India in the 90s. And what is Gujral doctrine? Gujral doctrine believed in non-reciprocity of relations. That means we admitted or accepted that India is a much larger power, more powerful country, and if it is a more powerful country, then it has to have relationship which is non-reciprocal. India can give at a concessional prices the goods that come into India. Tariff walls can be kind of slightly more relaxed. Customs can be relaxed. More infrastructure aid can be given to neighboring countries. And India identified weaker countries like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Nepal, etc., to help them out. Even India's trade with Pakistan, while dictatorship was there, Pakistan, Musharraf's, it was going on, or Zia's dictatorship also. So trade continued. But much more could be done, and that is important. Non-reciprocity was an important principle which Gujral gave, so that you carry the entire region with you. In that sense, only the South Asian University was established, where so that students from entire South Asia come together in Delhi, they meet each other, they find each other as friends, and go back to their respective countries to kind of bring amicable, peaceful bonhomie between South Asian countries and India, and that's how it has been working. What I kind of consider important is that because of India and Pakistan, then there are continuous tensions. Somewhere this problem has not been properly resolved. Although South Asian countries have much to collaborate with, they can fight terrorism because Sri Lanka also has faced terrorism, India has faced terrorism all the while. But Pakistan somehow has been perhaps hub of terrorism in the South Asian, among the South Asian countries. It has not taken punitive actions against Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba. Lashkar-e-Taiba is now called Jamaat-ul Dawa. They have not taken punitive actions against such terrorist organizations. Such organizations are also linked up to Al-Qaeda. Pakistan is also known for arms and drug-related trades. So Pakistan is difficult to handle as far as terrorism is concerned and drug trade is concerned, and that is kind of affecting the relationship. But because Pakistan is cause and affecting the relationship, India has not stayed idle. It has also built up relationship with Afghanistan via Iran somewhere. It has already built a port, the Chabahar port, and it will kind of connect itself to Afghanistan and Central Asia. India is invested in Afghanistan. They have built their parliament. They are trying to kind of build the educational institutions. Afghanistan is a minerally rich country, and all this India is India is seized off, and it is kind of working on it very consistently so that things become better. So on the whole, South Asian countries have immense prospects for collaboration, like in the area of natural calamities like COVID, for instance, COVID-19. India has vaccines. It can have vaccine diplomacy. It can help neighbors and fight COVID. AIDS, HIV, SARS. These are the calamities. Health-related infrastructure can be improved across South Asia together. Education is one more area where cooperation is possible. Nuclear non-proliferation is one more area where cooperation is possible. Building peace projects, building confidence-related measures are possible. But India has not relied only on these strategies, knowing fully well that Pakistan can cause constant problem in eventual cooperation between South Asian countries as well as integration between South Asian countries. India has moved further. Let me at the outset also state one thing, that no cooperative project or no project of integration in South Asia is even conceivable without India's active participation. It is the most dominant and the most important country in the area. But what has India done which is so different? I would consider that India has befriended through Bay of Bengal initiative countries like Bangladesh, Myanmar, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, and among Southeast Asian countries, Thailand. Now it is a very important step because BIMSTEC, as they call it, that gives India a chance to trade with these countries, chance to see that complementarity of interest is observed, and they kind of enhance their trade, technological cooperation. They build infrastructure and routes to kind of go ahead. In fact, northeastern part of this India is being used to build roads through Burma to absolutely Bangkok. This is the way infrastructure is being built, because India also has a corresponding policy. Earlier they used to call it Look East policy. Under Prime Minister Modi, they have started talking about Act East policy. So this Act East policy is very important. More than South Asia, perhaps now Southeast Asia is acquiring a very much important position as far as India is concerned. And India's cooperation with Southeast Asia is growing with ASEAN countries. Association of Southeast Asian Nations is growing quite rapidly. In fact, infrastructure-wise, if you look at it, Pune-Bombay Expressway was built up with Malaysian industry. Singapore is India's largest trading partner. Southeast Asia has 650 million people, and they constitute a very major market. So, there are many reasons to cooperate with Southeast Asia also, apart from South Asia, and India has not lost sight of it. I would like to mention here one important factor before I end, and that is China factor. China is a very important actor today in South Asia. It has tried to counter India's power in this part. In fact, India's trade with neighboring countries or South Asian countries is 1/3 of that of China. China trades 3 times more than India with all these Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka and other countries. China also is trying to make inroads in this area because like India, it doesn't have past baggage of hostilities or anything of that kind, whether border dispute or ethnic related dispute. So China is very much present. And what has China done further, I would mention, is that China has built Chittagong port in Bangladesh, Sittwe port in Myanmar, Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. It is also trying to build port in Maldives. So somewhere willy-nilly, but China is trying to encircle India within its own domain and counterbalance its power. So if India is important Indian Ocean power, China is also trying to become Indian Ocean power, but India has handled to kind of capacity to handle China also through Quad, the alliance between America, Japan, Australia and India, or cooperation between these 4 Quad countries can help India somewhere to kind of counter Chinese strategies, because India still is important Indian Ocean state. But all said and done, the cooperation in South Asia has its own possibilities, and conflicts which I talked about related to ethnic nationalities and unresolved border dispute persist. But that is how I view India and South Asia in sum and substance. To sum up then whatever I said, one, very clearly that South Asia as a region requires definition which we tried to do. South Asia is Indo-centric region, civilizationally, culturally and otherwise. It is Indo-centric because also of India's mighty power vis-a-vis its neighbors, and between each of the countries which I analyzed, whether it's Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Maldives, India has associations, sometimes even problems of conflict. And India is also making inroads in Afghanistan. But on the whole, this relationship and its complexities have to be studied with all these emerging trends to get a total picture of India and South Asia. Thank you very much.